Hello, this is Max. During World War II, the SO's French Operations Division sent several women on a mission to eliminate Colonel Heinrich. Don't forget to subscribe. At the beginning of the film, we see a female agent named Louise on a mission, but unfortunately, she loses her husband. Later, we see some real photographs of female agents. This film follows a group called SO. Louise meets her brother, who apologizes for her loss. Louise, however, doesn't seem to enjoy her brother's company. Later, they go to a London office where she meets an officer who offers her a job. The officer says that one of their British soldiers is injured and admitted to a German hospital. Louise is supposed to go as an undercover nurse and bring him back. At first, she is confident she can bring the soldier back all by herself, but the officer tells her that there will be 5 women on the mission. The officer says her brother has planned everything, and already an Italian woman with the codename Maria is in that hospital. Louise is supposed to train for 1 day and then go to Germany. The officer warns her about a colonel who might be on their mission. This scene changes, and we see the colonel showing a presentation to his other officers. He asks that most of their security should be at the location where they found an English geologist. He is talking about the same British soldier, but the colonel's teammates laugh at him, not taking his very seriously. Next, we see that the group going to meet Jean, who is a prostitute in jail. She was arrested for killing her pimp. They want her because they believe this mission might require some nudity, and someone like Jean can both attract and kill. Jean wants something in return. When the siblings deny her request, she begins to leave, but before that, Louise tells her that if they succeed, Jean will get her freedom. Next on the list is Gail, an expert in explosives. Louise asks her if she has ever gone on a mission. Gail seems against that idea, but Louise soon understands that Gail likes to fool around with men. Louise asks her brother to spend the night with her, and finally, she agrees. Now, the siblings go to meet Susie, who used to be a mistress of a Nazi soldier when she used to dance for them. At first, Susie is against this mission and tries to leave. However, they use her past as her weakness and blackmail her to join the team. The team gathers together and gets ready for the mission. They get new identities, money, and some other documents to blend in. They are also given cyanide, just in case they are tortured for information so they can eliminate themselves. The group gets on a plane to travel to Russia. Before boarding, they are blessed by a father. The colonel meets his assistant Eddie, who has arranged to meet up with a girl. He also tries to ask for an investment in his export business, promising the colonel a growth in his income. He rejects the offer and goes to meet the girl. When he sees the girl's face, his smile fades away. The group has reached Normandy and gets shot at. The ladies brace themselves as they undergo their attack. Back in the German hospital, we see the British soldier's life getting critical. One of the patients calls a nurse, and one of the soldiers tells the colonel they might have located their geologist, referring to the British soldier. The colonel gets a glimmer of hope and leaves to visit the hospital. Just then, the group reaches the hospital and blends in, but the colonel arrives and Louise sees him. She gets panicked, and to remembers that the colonel was in the picture with Susie. Louise goes to meet her brother and tells him that the colonel is here and they need to hide their British soldier. She also asks what the relationship between Susie and the colonel is. She believes they were married before. However, her brother declines to say anything and leaves. The colonel starts to interrogate the British soldier, but he doesn't answer anything. In return, the colonel gives him pain. Louise tries to stop the colonel, but he throws her out. Susie, on the other hand, is putting on a show for the German soldiers. Louise shoots the guard and goes to help the injured soldier. Gail, the bomb expert, is planning something under a car. One by one, they take out the German soldiers and carry on with their plan. Louise follows the colonel to the bathroom to kill him, but he is smart and acts quickly to save himself. The hospital is completely under attack. The group manages to get out of the building with their soldier, but Louise sees that the colonel is not dead. They hold back the enemy and escape in an ambulance. The colonel discovers that one of the soldiers took a picture during the event, and they might find their enemy in the photos. While escaping, the soldier says the Germans know about psionics. Louise, upon reading this, looks at her brother with disappointment. Later, Louise asks her brother what psionics means, but he declines to tell her anything. They both get into an argument, and Louise asks why he risked all their lives even though he knew Susie could be recognized. Her brother wants to kill the colonel using Susie once again. Louise, angry at him, slaps him. After some time, Their plane arrives, and the happy girls run towards their ride, but they are stopped and told that they will have to continue their mission in Paris. The group gets angry but has to obey orders when they are threatened by Louise's brother. Soon, the colonel with his army arrives at the area and surrounds everyone. They capture Louise's brother, who tries to use his cyanide for elimination, but they grab him. Louise watches this. The female agents hide in a bunker as they wait for the soldiers to leave. They get into a heated argument about whether to continue with the mission or abandon it. Louise is determined to complete the mission as her brother's life is at risk. Suddenly, a soldier starts killing some of their fellow agents, and blood drips onto one of the girls. Louise confronts the soldier, engaging in a fight. He begins to choke her, but another female agent shoots him, saving Louise. Meanwhile, Pierre, Louise's brother, is being tortured by German soldiers. He remains silent and pretends to know nothing about the mission. The colonel is trying to extract information about Phanex from Pierre but is unsuccessful. The group is on a train filled with German soldiers, and Louise falls unconscious during the journey. The rest of the agents are worried that the Germans might discover her true identity. The doctor on the train examines Louise and delivers surprising news: she is pregnant. The group becomes concerned that they will be captured. Jean attempts to leave the train, but one of the group members persuades her to stay on board. Meanwhile, Louise, inside the bathroom, realizes she is pregnant and smiles, embracing the fact that she will become a mother. Back at the train station, the Germans have identified Gail and have deployed men to find her. Louise and Susie, with the help of the doctor, manage to escape the station. However, while checking her ticket, Louise is captured by German soldiers. On the other hand, the colonel, having heard the name Louise during the attack, has found her file and is now convinced that Louise is behind all of this. Louise goes to a church using a passcode to gain entry. Everyone is present except Gail. Maria reveals her plan to take Susie out on a date, intending to reunite her with the colonel, who has been searching for her. Susie, however, is looking for an opportunity to kill the colonel. The tension continues to rise as the mission becomes increasingly perilous. Meanwhile, Pierre continues to endure extreme torture at the hands of the colonel. The colonel is determined to extract information about Louise from Pierre, but Pierre remains resolute, claiming not to know her. The colonel decides to bring in Gail, and one of his soldiers begins to strip her clothes. Despite the pain, Gail refuses to divulge any information. The torture escalates as they move on to brutal methods. Maria and Susie, on their way out of the church, spot German soldiers approaching the area. They manage to escape, but Louise and Jean decide to take refuge in the sewers. Back at the interrogation, Pierre, frustrated by Gail's lack of cooperation, attempts to kill her for not using her cyanide pill earlier. However, the soldiers intervene and prevent him from carrying out the act. Maria and Susie, in an unexpected turn of events, have a drink with Eddie, who mentions that he has been looking for a lady for his colonel. Susie is shocked to learn that she is expected to go on a date with a German colonel. Realizing that they can use Eddie's apartment as a hideout, Louise and Jean enter and pretend to be Maria's friends. Susie, upon realizing that she's being used as bait, becomes furious and starts yelling. She knocks out Eddie, and Louise suggests using the apartment as their hideout. Susie, feeling overwhelmed, tries to do the unspeakable, but Louise manages to console and calm her down. Susie confides in Louise, revealing that she was going to marry the colonel and was pregnant with his child. She ran away and gave the child to another family. Louise also shares her own news: she is 3 months pregnant. Later in the night, Maria receives a message that Big Master wants to meet with Louise. The following day, Louise meets with a man who informs her that they have arranged for Gail's escape and believe that the colonel will be present to oversee it. Louise's mission is to kill the colonel in a public location. She also learns that Pierre is still alive but unable to escape. Meanwhile, the rest of the group decides to use Eddie for their mission. Gail is taken to the designated public spot where Louise is ready to carry out her assignment. Maria spots the colonel in an office and discreetly informs Louise of his presence. Jean cleverly relays this information to Louise, but just as Maria attempts to kill the colonel, he becomes emotional and rushes out of the office upon seeing Susie. Maria's assassination attempt is foiled, and Louise's own shot misses the mark. The soldiers retrieve Gail, and while checking everyone's identification papers, Louise makes another attempt to eliminate the colonel, but once again, she narrowly misses her target. Jean manages to leave the station, but Louise is captured. Louise is tied up alongside Gail, and in a final act of compassion, she tosses her cyanide pill to Gail so she can die peacefully. Gail asks if Louise will forgive her, and Louise nods, tears in her eyes. The soldiers then take Gail away. Eddie receives a call from the colonel, who questions his presence at the station and asks about the woman with him. Eddie concocts a story, explaining that he found a woman who resembles his ex and wanted her to meet the colonel. The colonel instructs Eddie to bring her to him later that day. The colonel proceeds to torture Louise in front of Pierre, revealing their family connection. Under the duress of the torture, Pierre finally breaks down and agrees to provide information. He discloses that there are floating cubes that the Americans plan to use as landing platforms for an invasion of Germany. This critical information reaches American authorities, prompting them to take action. They decide to eliminate the colonel before he can act on this intelligence. Susie prepares to meet the colonel, intending to kill him. However, things take a dark turn during their meeting, and it's unclear who fired the shots, resulting in the deaths of either Susie or the colonel. It is soon revealed that Susie has died, and the colonel is furious with Louise for using his lover as an agent. The colonel insists that Pierre will accompany him to testify about psionics, but before that can happen, Pierre does the unspeakable, leaving Louise devastated and in tears. As the soldiers prepare to take Louise into custody, her fellow agents come to her rescue. She shares a heartfelt hug with Jean, and together, they don Nazi uniforms to infiltrate the train station. Jean understands that Louise can't reach the colonel directly, so she creates a diversion by shooting a soldier and gets herself captured. This diversion gives Louise the opportunity she needs to eliminate the colonel. She successfully kills him and escapes. With the Phoenix mission accomplished, Louise and Jean are congratulated for their successful completion of the mission. Louise, however, insists on securing Jean's freedom. The Phoenix mission proves to be a success, and Louise returns to her role as a nurse. Unfortunately, she receives the heartbreaking news of Jean's death. She grieves in solitude, but eventually, the pain of loss fades away as the war comes to an end. In the aftermath of the war, Louise visits a church and lights candles in memory of her fellow agents who sacrificed their lives for the mission. She later marries an architect, but tragically loses her child due to the torture she endured. This story concludes with Louise's death in 2004, marking the end of a life marked by sacrifice, bravery, and the enduring legacy of the Phoenix mission. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen, and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Goodbye.